Lakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Prabhajantamana Paityam Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Mayatayo Tarabo Vinidustam Sarvabhutam Hridim Manatoshmi Bhaktya Vina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karmari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Prinde Namaste Charanaravindam Bhaktya Vajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashvitasyam Vadami Radharam Karuna Paratram Tato Mamanasti Katyena Kapi. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Prabhishta Om Astol Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Lila Prabhishta Om Astol Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And all the Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. So today is another sacred tithi. It's the disappearance day of Bhakti Hridai Bon Maharaj. And it's also the disappearance day of, just a second, Bhakti Saurabh, Bhakti Sa Saurabh, I think the name is. Bhakti Saurabh, Bhakti Saurabh, Bhakti Sa Maharaj. So Bhakti Saurabh, Bhakti Sa Maharaj. So Bhakti Hridai Bon Maharaj is probably very well known to us all. He's the one who wrote the English version of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And he wrote it so exactly and with so much elaborate commentary he translated from Rupa Goswami that my Gurudev, Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, he wanted to translate this book into Hindi because he thought it was such a good explanation of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So he was an extremely erudite scholar. He could speak 4 or 5 languages. And in his later years, he went to Germany. He was sent to Germany by Pujapad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. And in Germany, in 2 months, he learned how to speak German so that he could deliver a German lecture. And he had some success in Germany. But he returned after about 6 or 7 months. I'm not sure of that history. But he did have some success there. But he was very fluent, very intelligent. And he was able to present the philosophy in such an attractive way. He was an attractive personality and very brilliant personality. And he established the school of Vaishnava, the Vaishnava Institute in Vrindavan, which is right next to the Krishna Balaram temple. So the Vaishnava Institute Research Center, I think it's called. And also he has his, one temple now is there dedicated to his teachings and so on. He opened one mutt in that area. So he did incredible service to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So today we're remembering with great honor this personality. And also Bhakti Saurabh Bhakti Sa Maharaj was a great personality that I don't really know very much about at all, except that he was a dedicated follower of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. All of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's followers were like luminaries, so many of them. Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, Bhakti Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Maharaj, so many of them. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati used to say that Mahaprabhu has sent the men to support his mission. So all of these personalities, and our beloved Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj, he's published one very beautiful book, My Glorious Masters, I think it's called. And in there, he's enumerated on so many of these personalities. And it's there for us today for posterity. So we're very fortunate. So today we're also honoring his disappearance day. Bhakti Saurabh Bhakti Sa Maharaj, a very dedicated disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj has told us if we don't glorify and mention these personalities, it's tantamount to an offense. So each time these personalities come, we should do some homework and check who they are if we're not sure of them. And I read about this Saurabh Bhakti Sa, but it's just very sketchy history. It's not very much that is written there. It's saying that he wasn't such an erudite scholar, but the people would adore him and they could appreciate his simplicity and his humility in getting the message across of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So he was glorified for that. This was his main quality, was his sincerity that people were attracted to. So Bhakti Hridai Bon Maharaj Goswami Ki Jai, Bhakti Saurabh Bhakti Sa Maharaj Ki Jai, Gold Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So now we're coming to our most glorious Jaiva-Dharma, and which verse? Last 6?
Yeah, the 6th one.
Or last 4? Last 4.
No, the first 5 we did yesterday.
Okay. So we're on the next 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 today. Okay.
Start.
Jadedvaita.
Yes. Jadedvaita Jnanaheya Chitta Upadeya Krishna Bhakti Chiradina Upaya Upaye.
Such knowledge, which is solely related to the duality of this dull material world, is fit to be rejected. So this is very much like the first verse. All dharmas are fit to be rejected completely if they're nimitic. So it's saying the same message. Be clear on what is material and what is spiritual. Don't go halfway between the two. We're made of this Tatashta Shakti, but we have to know the division between material, what is matter, nimitic, and what is nitya. So these are what the first 12 chapters are all bringing to the light very, very clearly. Whereas transcendental knowledge of the divine duality within the spiritual world, Chit Jagat, should be accepted forever within one's heart, both as the upaya, the means of attainment, and the upaye, the goal worthy of attainment. So this spiritual duality means two. So material duality is the conditioned jiva with the illusory energy in his relationship to Krishna. But the transcendental duality is the awakened spirit soul with the object of devotion, Sri Krishna. So this is divine duality. There must be duality. Duality means two. So there must be duality within the spiritual world in that sense. So this is what it's referring to. So this is principally described in the last 14 chapters. The first chapters are all clearing a lot of ground to erect a solid platform so that we can enter into the rasa stali, we can enter into rasa tattva. This is essential for the sadhak because this is our prayojan, this is where we're going, this is bhav bhakti. Actually, bhav bhakti is discussed in the 22nd chapter, just to understand what is bhav bhakti, but we can realize bhav bhakti by realizing the prayojan. What's that? Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, Prem Suryavam Samyamak. That this bhav is like a ray of prem. Ruchibis Chitan Vishnu, Shud Ashu Bhav Uchyate. This is the definition of Bhava Bhakti. It's like a ray of prem. So when we understand the prem chapters, the last 14, then we can get an appreciation of what is Bhava Bhakti simultaneously. Okay, Jiva. Bill.
जड़े द्वैत ज्ञान है
Jiva.
जीव कबू जड़ नाय हरि कबू नाय हरि सहा जीव अचिंत्य भेद अभेद नाय माय.
The Jiva is not a product of dull matter, nor is he Keval Advaita, absolutely one in all ways with Hari. The Jiva is inconceivably different and non-different from him. So this relationship again, relationship. This is all the Jiva needs. All he needs is to wake up his eternal relationship with the Supreme in affection, in bhav, in prem. That's all he needs to do. Once that devotion is solid and settled and can't be shifted, once it's an irrevocable place in the heart, then we are assured of full spiritual success. But without that sambandha, no spiritual success can be there. So this is and it's saying the same thing here. And we've been through this a number of times. What are the 9 similarities between the Jiva and Krishna? What is it? Gyan Swarup, Nata Swarup, Bhaktri Swarup, Mantri Swarup, Ketra Gyan, Swaprakash, Paraprakash. There's 9 similarities there. Krishna is the enjoyer. I am an enjoyer. Krishna acquires knowledge, or not acquires, is knowledgeable, and the Jiva is knowledgeable. The Jiva gives light, and Krishna gives light. And then, what's the last one? Shuddha Deha is the last. We have a pure spiritual body, and Krishna has a pure spiritual body. So that these all similarities. So in this way, we are one with Krishna, but the quantity is enormous. So it's good to hear these things again and again and again, because each time we hear them, we're going to make a refreshed appreciation of these truths. We need to hear them constantly, because we do have that spiritual spark of Godhead, we can say, within us. It's there. Okay. Deha Kabu.
देह कबू जीवनाय धरा भोग्य नाय दास भोग्य जीव कृष्ण प्रभु भोक्ता हाय.
The material body should never be considered to be the Jiva. Again, it's saying the same thing as the last 2 verses has. Why does Bhaktivinoda Thakur have to repeat it so many times? Because do you realize you're not the body? How many times do we have to hear, I'm not the body? You've been hearing for 30, 40, 50 years, you're not the body. But how long does it take us to realize that? Because we can't realize that without Krishna's mercy, without first having this relationship with Krishna. It's this relationship with Krishna that's going to give us that Krishna Kripa. And that relationship comes through the mercy of Guru. Guru and Krishna are non-different. So how else can we get this avaroha panta, this current of divine potency descending into the heart? It's described that it's like the Sandini Shakti. Our body consists of the Sandini Shakti. That's the material or existence potency. And within that existence potency, a ray of the Hladini Shakti will touch. And when that Hladini Shakti manifests in the heart of the Sandini, the existence potency within the self. This is all going to be described in the 14th chapter, by the way, very clearly. And then this Sandini Shakti will wake up the bliss of Seva. When the bliss of Seva is woken, then we can appreciate that our spiritual life has really begun. If we get that taste for what is that spiritual Seva, then our spiritual life has begun. So again, Guru gives us that opportunity. I've just got to finish this. The Jiva's Swarup is Krishna Das, and thus he is meant for Krishna's enjoyment, whereas Sri Krishna's Swarup is Prabhu, Master, and Bhakta, enjoyer. So there's a distinction, of course, but at the same time, they are one in their connection with, because Krishna loves the Jiva loves Krishna. This loving relationship is what our whole philosophy is about from start to beginning, because it's very hard for us in this material world, because practically we cannot find love in the material world. The closest place to love is the love from a mother to her child. That's described as being the closest example of pure love. But not even that is pure, because the mother only loves her child. The mother will get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to feed the child, no problem, because she loves the child, but she won't get up at 2 o'clock for every other child in the street. So it's just very selfish. It's a localized affection and awareness, but it's not universal. Only understanding Paramatma feature within all of the jivas can one begin to appreciate that divine affection. And that is only secondary to the attraction and affection to Bhagavan himself. What do we have? Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmati paramatmati Bhagavan iti shabhyate. So that's a progression of stages of consciousness, but still that Paramatma state is when we see that Paramatma feature within all jivas. Just like we read in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's mentioned 5 times in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, this Virat Rupa, to appreciate Krishna in all existence. And then we go to what is my personal relationship with Krishna. This is what this Jaiva-Dharma, this is where it will take us. I mean, the first personality we're meeting in this Jaiva-Dharma is Prem Das Babaji. It's not just a coincidence that his name is Prem Das Babaji, that he's the first person to be mentioned. Prem, that's our goal. And the person who's coming to see him, first he's a sannyasi, then he's Vaishnava Das. Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't just haphazardly make these names up. They're all very explicit. Vaishnava Das is serving Prem Das. So we are Vaishnavas and we are serving that conception of Prem. Okay.
Jaiva-Dharma nahi ache Deha-Dharma katha, nahi ache Jiva-Jnane Maya-Vada pratha.
This book, entitled Jaiva-Dharma, neither discusses matters related to the dead material body, nor does it propound the Mayavad doctrine of the jiva's oneness with Brahm. So 2 here. It's not talking about Naimitic Dharma, and it's not talking about Mayavad, that I am one with Krishna, in the sense, Hangro Paskin in here it's called. When I become like Krishna, that is pure Mayavad. So it's not going to have any discussion from that perspective. Okay, Govind.
Jiva nitya dharma bhakti tahe jada nai, Shuddha jiva prema seva phale pai tai.
The jiva's nitya dharma is bhakti, devoid of material motivation. We discussed that yesterday. Remember, we discussed yesterday that idea of material motivation. We were talking about our material desires, the desire to eat, the desire to sleep, the desire for so many natural things. This is materially motivated desires. The jiva, purified by seva, attains the fruit of that jewel in the form of prem. So rather than speculate on our seva, we always have to reference our Guru Vargya. What were they demonstrating in their acts, their great acts of seva to their gurus? We start with the 6 Goswamis, uncovering those holy places in Vrindavan and enumerating so many scriptures. And then Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Narottam, etc., all these personalities. My Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, all these personalities, what did they do with their lives, with the mood of dedication to their gurus, to bringing out, to resurrecting these Bhakti Shastras? This is what Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he gave us the whole Srimad Bhagavatam in English. He gave us the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita in English. He gave us so many other books in English. The 10th canto, separately, the Krishna book. He gave us the Upadeshamrita. He gave us the Nectar of Devotion, which is the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He gave us all of this in English, in dedication to their guru. So this is direct guru. At the same time, speaking to everybody. Yare deke tare deke, Krishna Upadesh, Amare Agyan, Guru Hana, Tore e Desh. that whoever we meet, whoever we talk to, we should talk to them about Krishna. Everyone should become guru. Agyan, Guru Hana. Everyone should become like Guru. And I said before, it doesn't mean that you have a huge seat and millions of followers or anything like that. You just take the role of responsibility of teaching this philosophy, knowing that just a few words sometimes can begin someone's journey on the path out of the illusory energy. That's what it means. It's not a big, complicated thing. We shouldn't throw it out of proportion, which devotees sometimes tend to do. They think, oh, I'm not qualified, I'm not qualified. None of us are qualified. No one's qualified. Who's going to begin to teach people to become qualified? We all have to do that in our own areas. Whoever it is, like your family members, etc., give them some ingredient to try and trigger some inquiry in their minds, some respect towards this Vaishnava path, as best we can do. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was sending his preachers out to open centers who only knew one verse of Bhagavad Gita. That was enough in the time of emergency. It is a time of emergency. It's emergency because this greatest gift has come to the earth in the form of Braja Prem, Braja Ras, Raganuga Bhakti, Parakiya Bhav. This greatest gift has come, and yet so few are actually really embracing it, even amongst the devotees, seriously. We're not becoming serious sufficiently. Serious means I'm not indulging in any intoxicating, illusory pleasures. I've really started to reduce that. That doesn't mean I become miserable or something like that. It means I just don't actively try to pursue material pleasures with my various resources. That's not my goal in life, as it would have been previously. Okay, so now we're coming back to our chapter 12, which is a beautiful turning point where Brajanath has asked the question about material enjoyment. And Raghunath Das Babaji, he's answered so sublimely. He's given the three paths of life for everybody: bhukti, mukti, and bhakti. And we've discussed bhukti a couple of days ago, 3 days ago, I think. And we've discussed mukti, and now we're in the process of discussing bhakti. And Brajanath has brought to Babaji's attention about the various mahavakyas. And yesterday we discussed that these mahavakyas are fallacious in the sense that the Bhagavatam doesn't claim them as mahavakyas. Sankaracharya utilized them for his mission, and his mission was to bring the Vedic scriptures back into India. That was his mission. With the advent of Lord Buddha, he couldn't establish this impersonal philosophy to stop the cow slaughter, which was prevalent at that time. After Krishna left the planet 5,000 years ago, Lord Buddha advented about 2,000 years later, because the Brahmins had started to abuse the sacrificial offerings. And instead of rejuvenating the creatures, the cows in particular, they'd started to eat them. So Buddha manifested, and without using any Vedic knowledge, Shastra, he just demonstrated by his own potency the power of reaching impersonal Brahman. He took them to impersonal Brahman rather than kept them killing the animals. But in order to do that, he had to chase away all the Vedic scriptures. Otherwise, people would be referencing them and not following the path of nirvana, this nirvishesh Brahm. So Sankaracharya's mission was to bring all those teachings back into India. So he spoke on the back of but he couldn't speak on all the Vedic scriptures because that would become personal again. Sankaracharya didn't preach a particularly personal philosophy. He was preaching what's described as a covered Buddhistic philosophy, covered Buddhism. This is what Sankaracharya preached in order just to bring the Vedas back. That was his mission. So he couldn't open it all. So he picked out these various mahavakyas, aham brahmasmi, etc. I am Brahm. But this is only once mentioned amongst so many other verses and so on. So this is not the complete picture. We know that Shankaracharya wanted to actually give them bhakti, but that wasn't his instruction by Krishna. So he had to take this not pleasant path of introducing Mayavadism without, on the back though of the scriptures. So all the scriptures came back into India again. Then after this, 800 years later, came Ramanuja. Then Ramanuja was discussing the difference between the Jiva and Krishna. He says it's Vaishishtyavad, it's a speciality between Krishna and the Jiva. So then that got reintroduced, that Sampradaya. The Ramanujas were very powerful. Then after him was Madhvaracharya. He says two, the Jiva and Krishna. This is why we see him like this, always with two, the Jiva and Krishna. This is Madhvaracharya. And then after that, Nimbaditya. And after that, Vishnu Swami. So these Sampradayas were gradually bringing in the Jiva and Krishna, these two conceptions, rather than this one, this Advaitavad that Sankaracharya had done. So this is what Brajanath is proposing to Raghunath Das Babaji right at the very beginning, just to clear these doubts away. So yesterday, there were many verses quoted in relationship to these Mahavakyas. And Raghunath Das Babaji is purifying this conception so nicely by saying these are not actually Mahavakyas, because the scripture doesn't declare them as Mahavakyas, so they're not Mahavakyas. And we were saying yesterday that every single shloka of the Bhagavatam we can call a Mahavakya. And then I'll just read the last one here. In the Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad 456, it is also said,
Atmava are drashtavyaha shrotavyo mantavyo nidhyasavityaha.
O Maitreyi, one should see, hear about, think of, and meditate upon the supreme truth, Paramatma. So he's describing that in different places it's saying, Paramatma is not the highest conception of the truth. Paramatma in this world is not even eternal, because where does Paramatma feature go to after the cosmic manifestation is annihilated completely, all back into the body? There's a conception of Paramatma is there, but the actual form of the Paramatma feature no longer exists. This is said in Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and it's said very, very clearly in my Gurudev's Bhagavad Gita by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. And if anyone wants to see the exact quote later, I can read it to them. But it's saying that Paramatma feature is not an eternal, form. So if we take shelter of Paramatma, or like those who take shelter of Paramatma, will just go to that place of Siddhaloka, which is on the other side of the Viraja river. But that form is somewhat impersonal also. It's a form, so it's not as impersonal as merging into the Brahman, because it's actually a form. It has four arms. It's described the size of a thumb in Srimad Bhagavatam. But it's not the supreme goal. So this is just an example of how the scriptures are not always directing to the ultimate goal. This is what we discussed yesterday. They'll first encourage karmkand for that fruitive worker. Then they'll encourage gyankand, mukti. And then when the person is purified, they can encourage bhakti. Then it'll be bhakti like to Paramatma feature. But then it has to go further again to Bhagavan. And then even further again to Srimati Radhika. So it moves on. And Radhika's name is not even mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. She's very disguised, very confidential. One who studies these Vedic statements carefully, when one studies these Vedic statements carefully, it is clear that bhakti is the best form of sadhana. This is what Raghunath Das Babaji is trying to put down as the principle. So this is where we're beginning. It's on page 275, in the green edition. That's the latest edition, if you're following here. So Brajanath is saying, the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas gives instructions to perform bhakti to Ishvara, who bestows the results of all action. In the Gyan Kand section, we also find instructions to satisfy Hari by performing bhakti through the medium of 4 types of sadhan, known as sadhan chaturstayi. So how can bhakti be the sadhya if it, this is Brajanath's question. So how can bhakti be the sadhya if it is the means to obtain bhakti and mukti? It's a good question. How can we say that bhakti is the sadhya, the goal, if it's the means to attain the goal? How can it be both? He's a very smart soul, this Brajanath. He's wanting to know. So how can bhakti be the sadhya if it is the means to obtain bhakti and mukti? Since bhakti is the means, it ceases to exist when it produces bhakti or mukti, right? The quality that you use to attain the goal, that is useless once you attain the goal. You don't need it anymore. Just like, for example, if you're a musician and you're studying so many notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, etc., and you're studying the whole compositions and so on. But when you can play the music, you just forget about all that. It's not needed anymore. So similarly, this is like what is the sadhan and the sadhya. When you reach the sadhya, the sadhan is no longer a priority. So if the sadhan is bhakti and the sadhya is bhakti, how can that be? This is the question he's asking. It ceases to exist when it produces bhukti or mukti. This is the general principle. Please educate me on this question. Babaji, it is true that performing the regulated practices, sadhan, of bhakti in karma kand gives material enjoyment, and bhakti sadhan performed in gyan kand gives mukti. Nothing can be accomplished without bhakti. Bhakti means devotion. If you're devoted to your fruitive activities being fulfilled, you will be like Dhruva Maharaj, go to the forest and with great devotion perform your tapas and austerities. That's devotion. It's not the bhakti that we consider bhakti, like Braja bhakti or anything. Bhakti just means devotion in the general sense of the word here. So bhakti can give mukti, a bhukti, and bhakti will also give mukti. And bhakti sadhan performed in the Gyan Kanda gives mukti. One cannot achieve any result without satisfying Parameshwara. And he is only satisfied by bhakti. So you can't get bhukti, you can't get mukti, and you can't get bhakti. You can't get anything without satisfying the Supreme Controller. The Supreme Controller is the Supreme Controller. He is the Supreme Controller. We do have to, this is what Sambandha is all about, appreciating the reality of that Supreme Lord. He is the reservoir of all potencies, and whatever potency is found within the jivas or within inert matter is only an infinitesimal display of his potency. Everything is coming from his potency, everything. Karma and Gyan cannot satisfy Ishvara. Karma and Gyan give a result only with the help of Bhagavad Bhakti. They are incapable of producing a result independently. Therefore, it is seen that there is an arrangement for some performance of a semblance of bhakti in karma and gyan. Can you close that door? However, where is it? An arrangement for, therefore it is seen that there is an arrangement for some performance of a semblance of bhakti in karma and gyan. There must be some bhakti in gyan and karma and gyan. Otherwise, it wouldn't bear fruit. However, this is not Shuddha Bhakti. Rather, it is only Bhaktiya Abhas. Very, very, very helpful for the sadhak to be very clear on these points. This is solid Siddhanta that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is gifting to us. Understand, all these paths have some bhakti, but it's Bhakti Abhas, it's not Shuddha Bhakti. We're going back again to the teachings of Bhakti Tattva Vivek. This is why before we approach this, we read that book, Bhakti Tattva Vivek. It's very, very helpful because that Bhakti Tattva Vivek, it delineates clearly what is Shuddha Bhakti. Anyabilasita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhakti uttama. This is Uttam Bhakti. I am so fortunate because my Gurudev, in every single festival he ever performed, he always had all the devotees chant this. He always would establish that initial premise or platform of what is Shuddha Bhakti? Where are we going? What is the goal where we're all walking towards? It's Shuddha Bhakti, Uttam Bhakti, not Aropa Siddha Bhakti, not Sangha Siddha Bhakti. So these other types of bhakti are there. This is called Swarup Siddha Bhakti. This is Swarup Siddha Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti, Kevala Bhakti, Ananya Bhakti. These are all the same. These all means pure, Shuddha Bhakti. We have to know this very deeply. What is pure bhakti? Accordingly, the bhakti seen in karma and gyan is a mere semblance of devotion, not Shuddha Bhakta. And it is this Bhakti Abhas that is instrumental in bringing forth the results of those pursuits. So Bhakti Abhas, Nama Abhas, etc., can still bring results. But there's two types of Abhas. There's Chaya and Pratibimba. Chaya means connecting to the object, so that is bona fide. Chaya means shadow, so the shadow is connected to the object. But Pratibimba means reflection. If the Nam Abhas or Bhakti Abhas is a reflected Abhas, it's like a Mayavad conception. Reflected is not, the reflection is not connected to the object. You see the tree reflected in the water of the lake, and it's not connected. So it's separate. So this Pratibimba means reflection. And this reflected Abhas will not take you to the path of Shuddha Bhakti. But Chaya Abhas, this Bhakti Abhas that he's mentioning here, he's not going into this detail so much because he's giving a lot of detail in other areas. But I'm just explaining this Abhas situation because Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying that Karma Kand and Gyan Kand have to use bhakti to achieve their goal. They can't achieve the goal. You can't get the results of your fruitive desires without some worship. People will pray for some money. They'll pray to pass their exams. They'll pray for so many things to come. That's called karma kand. You're asking for material objects to come. But if your faith is strong that Krishna is going to fulfill them, then that Bhakti Abhas is Chaya Bhakti Abhas. That is okay. If you're praying to God and you're thinking, well, he may not help me. Actually, it's my expertise that's going to bring about the result. Especially if someone is very qualified in this world materially, then it's very hard for them to submit to the Lord because they're so used to actually fulfilling all their own desires themselves by their own expertise. But those people also at some point will reach the limitation of their expertise and then have to cry for Krishna, certainly at the end of this life, when they can't control their bodies. And the life air has to leave the body. So we should know this distinction between Pratibimba and Chaya very clearly. I'll just read that last sentence again. Accordingly, the bhakti seen in karma and gyan is a mere semblance of devotion, not Shuddha Bhakti. And it is this Bhakti Abhas that is instrumental in bringing forth the results of those pursuits. So that's just what we've been saying. You have to perform bhakti to get any type of result. There are two types of bhakti abhas: Shuddha bhakti abhas, pure, and Vida bhakti abhas, adulterated. I shall describe pure bhakti abhas later, but for the present, you should know that there are three types of adulterated bhakti abhas. These are bhakti abhas adulterated with fruitive action, bhakti abhas adulterated with monistic knowledge. The first one is karma, second one is mukti, monistic knowledge, and bhakti abhas adulterated with both fruitive action and monistic knowledge. So this is the both at the end, 3. 1, 2, 3. While a person is performing a yajna, he may say, O Indra, O Pusana, the devata of the sun, please be merciful and give us the results of this yajna. All activities exhibiting a semblance of bhakti adulterated with this type of desire are known as a semblance of bhakti, adulterated with fruitive action. I just gave the example, not of a yajna, of someone who wants to pass their exams or something. They're praying. They're praying for a result. But they're praying. The point of the praying is the bhakti. That's the prayer. All activities exhibiting a semblance of bhakti adulterated with this type of desire are known as a semblance of bhakti adulterated with fruitive action. Some magnanimous souls have referred to this type of adulterated bhakti as devotion mixed with fruitive action. Karma Mishra Bhakti. Mishra means mixed. Karma Mishra Bhakti. Now this, well, I'll just let him go through. Others have described it as activities to which the symptoms of bhakti are indirectly attributed. Arope Siddha Bhakti. Arope Siddha Bhakti, Rupa Goswami says this is okay because it has a semblance of bhakti in there. Arope Siddha Bhakti means I'm doing something principally because I like to do it. I like to cook, so I'll just offer it to Krishna. I like to dig in the garden, and I'll just offer the fruits to Krishna. I like to paint, and I'll just offer the painting to Krishna. But my principal motivation is that I have an attraction to performing this activity. I like to do the activity, and I just tail end it with an offering of it to Krishna. But my main motivation is that I like it. That's why I do it. That's called Arope Siddha Bhakti. Again, this selfishness that we discussed yesterday, this all-consuming selfishness of the conditioned soul. He's doing everything for his own pleasure. So this Arope Siddha Bhakti is certainly not Shuddha Bhakti or Swarup Siddha Bhakti, but it's still considered Bhakti in the sense that it's Bhakti Abhas. This is what Raghunath Das Babaji is explaining here. I'll read the last sentence again. Others have described it as activities to which the symptoms of bhakti are indirectly attributed. Arope Siddha Bhakti. Try to remember all these terminologies.
Gurudev gives an example of a devotee starting a school.
Right.
So, Aropa Siddha Bhakti.
So yes, somebody likes to teach. So they start a school and then they think, oh, I'll just put Krishna on the end of it. I like to be with kids and it's my nature to teach, and then I'll just include a bit of Krishna. Yes, it's bhakti because you're including Krishna, but it's not Shuddha Bhakti. This point of Shuddha Bhakti has to be super clarified. He's going to take Brajanath on a journey to Shuddha Bhakti. He's going to take him to his real identity as a Sakha of Krishna in Vrindavan, with the cowherd boys, with Subal and Sridham taking the cows out. That's where he's taking him. So first of all, he has to be really delineating clearly what is devotion to Krishna. Who is that person that I'm devoted to? Is he just my order supplier? He will just fulfill my various fruitive needs. Most people in the world who are religious treat the Lord as their order supplier. They are asking God for various requirements. The Christians, what do they say?
Give us our daily bread.
Give us our daily bread, yes. Always something in the hand, as if God doesn't know that you need daily bread. When you're a little more advanced, you realize that the Lord is all pervasive. He knows everything. You don't have to ask him for anything. And whatever he is allotting you is for your own benefit, for your own purification. So then the sadhak becomes very peaceful and satisfied, because whatever he has, whatever situation he's in, is completely conducive to his spiritual ultimate success. That's Shraddha. Developing Shraddha is the very beginning, it's the cornerstone of our bhakti. So all of these stages are all developing our bhakti. It's very beautiful because it's so clear. It's so much delineated. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making it crystal clear. A, B, C, D, E. He's just making it totally clear.
But if we ask for mercy,
Huh?
generally we as a devotee.
But we know that
mercy.
Krishna is going to give us mercy because he's Karunamayi. He's full of mercy. He's going to give us mercy anyway. Still, we are hungry for more mercy. We're never satisfied with enough. It depends how eager we are. This utsaha is a very important quality in the bhakta. We want mercy to be enthusiastic. The current of bhakti, if it's not moving in a dynamic manner, if it's not moving quickly, if it becomes somewhat stagnant, like a slow moving river, you can get distracted very easily. This current of bhakti has to be really vigorously moving along. Each moment of our lives, not each day of our lives, even not each week, but each moment, from the very first waking in the morning, praying to our Guru Vargya, taking Harinam, chanting mantras, singing stotras, etc., when we're taking bath, and then honoring Mahaprasad, offering Mahaprasad, then performing various sevas in the world. Everything, just constantly packing our lives filled with opportunities for seva. This is what the devotee is praying for. And he doesn't have to ask for it, he can just do it. He starts to, and it's by Krishna's mercy that any of those activities will give success. And if they don't give success, that's Krishna's arrangement also. If someone's trying to open a restaurant thinking this will be serving the people, but Krishna doesn't think that's going to be a good idea, he'll make it fail and fail. Like Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. How many times did he try to start his chemical sales and so on? He just kept failing again and again and again and again. Krishna didn't want him to be successful in that area. If you become successful in some area like that, you probably won't spend much time reading the Shastras. You probably become so much involved in your various, like building a temple, for example. Unless Guru says, build a temple here, then don't build a temple. If Guru directly asks us to build a temple, that's the greatest seva. But if he doesn't directly ask, and building a temple is not necessarily qualify us for bhakti, because what are you going to do once you've built that temple? It's what's inside the temple that's going to be beneficial for the people, and that will depend on the individual who has assimilated pure bhakti. And that person is probably not the one who is laying all the bricks or collecting all the money, because he wouldn't have had time to read. They'll probably just have to import someone, but that person could have sat anywhere. It really does mean immersing ourselves in the Bhakti Shastras. My Gurudev used to say, what can you teach if you haven't, what can you preach if you haven't assimilated what is pure bhakti? If you don't really know what that is, if you haven't given yourself enough space in life to actually absorb the Bhakti Shastras, what are you going to teach? What are you going to preach? It's like trying to save a dying person. You can't even swim. You're in the river trying to save them, but you don't know how to swim. What's the value? Another person may say, "Oh, Yadunandan, I have come to you out of fear of material existence." This is answering your question. "I chant your name, Hare Krishna, day and night. Please grant me liberation. O Supreme Lord, you are Brahm. I have fallen into the trap of Maya. Please deliver me from this entanglement and let me merge in oneness with you." This is exactly what she was saying. These sentiments are a semblance of bhakti, adulterated with monistic knowledge. Monistic knowledge means the path for mukti. You actually want liberation. You don't want to just please Krishna. You want something for you. You want to be happy. Not Krishna want to be happy. We're not inquiring how to please Krishna. It's like these three paths are described later on. It's called, what is it? Bhagavat. What's it called now? Just a second. I just forget these things sometimes. Can't find it. These three parts: Bhagavat, Abhilas, the desire for Bhagavan. And that's the first one, the desire for Bhagavan. The second one is Anukul Bhagavat, Abhilas, the desire to favorably please Bhagavan. And then the third stage is so hard, Abhilas. That's to make friends with Bhagavan. So there's three distinctions in connection with Bhagavan. And let me just show you where these are related to here. On page 507, you can just jump ahead quickly. It's good to know our way around this Jaiva-Dharma a little bit. Quickly look on page 507 and you'll see what I'm describing. .507 is in the stage of Bhav Bhakti, and down the first paragraph is saying the word ruchi signifies three desires. These are: one, the desire to attain the service of Radha and Krishna, prapti abhilas, the desire to attain this. Two, the desire to do that which is favorable for Krishna's pleasure, anukul abhilas. And three, the desire to serve Krishna with love and affection, so hard abhilas. So make a note of that, 507. That's in the chapter 22, which is about Bhav Bhakti. Then we can become knowledgeable in our Jaiva-Dharma. And when these topics arise, we can quickly put our fingers on them. I have to make my index a bit more clear. I write my own personal index in the back of my book, but I don't always write it clearly enough. Usually I get it. So please deliver me from this entanglement and let me merge in oneness with you. This is exactly what I was saying yesterday, that many people, even on this spiritual path, consider that going back to Godhead is a glorified, liberated condition. Going back to Godhead means you find your staiva, your eternal spiritual identity in relationship to Krishna. And what is your eternal seva in relationship to Radha or in relationship to Krishna? That's what going back to Godhead means. It doesn't mean now you're liberated from material suffering. Those in the spiritual world, we read in chapter 16, don't even know this material world exists. They don't even know about Maya. So how can they fall into this material world? That bogus apasidantic conception that we felt from the spiritual world is reprehensible. This is a modern day apasiddhanta that they've fabricated for their own ends. It has nothing to do with pure siddhanta. These sentiments are a semblance of bhakti adulterated with monistic knowledge. Some magnanimous souls have described this as devotion mixed with monistic knowledge, Gyan Mishra Bhakti. So we just mentioned Karma Mishra Bhakti. Now we have Gyan Mishra Bhakti. Very helpful to know these terminologies. There's another edition of this Jaiva-Dharma written by Pujapad Yeti Maharaj. And we only had that reference 30 odd years ago. We didn't have this one. And he tries to anglicize all of the Sanskrit terminologies. And it's so difficult to understand. If I see Gyan Mishra Bhakti, I know exactly what that means. If I see Karma Mishra Bhakti, I know exactly what that means. But if you try to put that terminology into English, it's not so easy to get it immediately. You have to really kind of think about it. So this vocabulary is important. Gyan Mishra Bhakti and Karma Mishra Bhakti. And then just remember, there is Bhakti Mishra Karma, and there is Bhakti Mishra Gyan. When you have the Bhakti first, it means the Bhakti is prominent. Bhakti Mishra Karma means my Bhakti is prominent, but there's a little bit karma inside it. When it's Karma Mishra Bhakti, it means the karma is most prominent. Pradhana Bhuti Bhakti, it's called in the Bhagavad Gita. Which one is prominent? And when we say Gyan Mishra Bhakti, it means Gyan is prominent, or Bhakti Mishra Gyan. It means that the Bhakti is prominent. So that's another aspect of that. Gyan Mishra Bhakti, and others as activities to which the symptoms of bhakti are indirectly attributed. Arope Siddha Bhakti, we just discussed. These adulterated forms of devotion are different from Shuddha Bhakti. This is exactly the same teaching as Bhakti Tattva Vivek. This is the same teaching. What is Shuddha Bhakti? Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives a whole little book, this Bhakti Tattva Vivek, on the verse Anyavilasita Shunyam. What is Shuddha Bhakti? So we don't get derailed at the very beginning of our journey. We should know. Even we're not qualified for Shuddha Bhakti, of course, none of us are qualified. We're all stumbling in the dark of conditioned delusion. But if we know what is the goal, then at least we're making some progress in the right direction. It's like if you're aiming at a star and you're a millionth of a degree off, by the time you reach that star, you'll be trillions of miles separate. But if you get the star in your sights with the right compass, then you'll be on track. But if there's any sort of desire for material, and how simple is it to have some material agenda when all we're thinking about all day long is my own state of happiness? Am I happy in this room? Am I happy in this climate? Am I happy with this prasad? Am I happy with my bank balance? Am I happy in my job, whatever? All these considerations, am I happy? So this is a very, very thick state of consciousness that pervades us like a wall. It's just surrounding us. How to actually come out of that bubble of self desires. This whole bubble, Bhaktivinoda Thakur discussed it in the 7th chapter. He says all of this is the colossal affair called samsara. This is the samsara that we have fallen into. In the 7th chapter, he says that whole list. I am a devata, I am a man, I am a woman, I am a husband, I am a wife. He goes through all these different identities, a whole list of them. And these are all like putting layers on the jiva's consciousness of my material identity. It's very, very deep and very thick. We need something as powerful as the holy name to penetrate through all these. And the holy name has that power. Etavane velokeshmim pumsam dharma paroshmita. Bhakti yoga, what is it? Etavane pumsam. Bhakti yoga. Tannama granadi bi. This Tannama granadi bi. This name is going to purify these hard concrete walls we have that are keeping us due to our insecurities in this material world, rather than liberating us from this material world to take full shelter of the spiritual reality. And I've said previously, it takes courage to do that, to cut the bonds of this material world. You've got to be very sure of your step, each step at a time. When you're walking up a set of stairs, you're testing that step where you're walking to before you release the step below. So it has to be done carefully. So this Siddhanta is helping us through there. Wow, 6 o'clock already. I'll read a bit more. It is said in Gita 6:47, Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam. I consider that one who worships me with faith is the best of all yogis. The bhakti to which Sri Krishna is referring in this statement is Shuddha Bhakti, and this is our sadhan. When it is perfected, it is prem. Karma and Gyan are the means to obtain bhukti and mukti respectively. They are not the means by which the jiva can obtain his nitya siddha bhav or eternal constitutional position of divine love. So we're going to stop here. Our time is up. But when Brajanath had heard all these conclusive truths, he was unable to make further inquiries that day. Instead, he reflected within himself. The examination and discussion of all these subtle philosophical truths is superior to the dialectical analysis of the Nyaya Shastra. Babaji Mahashai is vastly learned in these matters. I will gradually acquire knowledge by inquiring from him about these topics. It is quite late, so I should return home now. See how much is left of this. I think we can just finish this chapter tonight. Thinking thus, he said, Babaji Mahashai, today by your mercy, I have received essential superior knowledge. I would like to come to you from time to time to receive this type of instruction. He's cementing his relationship with his guru. You are a deeply realized scholar and a great teacher. Please be merciful to me. Kindly permit me to ask you just one more question today, since it is already late, and I will return home when I've heard your answer. Did Sachinandan Gauranga write any book in which all his instructions can be found? If he did, I am anxious to read it. Babaji Mahashai replied, Sriman Mahaprabhu did not write any book of his own, but his followers wrote many books on his order. Mahaprabhu personally gave the jivas 8 instructions in the form of aphorisms called Shikshastika. These are like a necklace of jewels for the bhaktas. In these 8 shlokas, he has imparted the instructions of the Vedas, the Vedanta, the Upanishads, and the Puranas in a concise and confidential manner, as if keeping a vast ocean in a single pitcher. So this is what we said many times. This book is like a vast ocean of Siddhantas, and it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur is bringing it in to a single jar where we can actually access it very simply. It's not so voluminous. There are so many scriptures, so many Puranas, so many itihasyas. How can the poor conditioned soul in Kali Yuga assimilate all those? He can't, but he can assimilate this Jaiva-Dharma. It's all in here. Based on these confidential instructions, the Bhaktas have composed 10 fundamental principles known as Dashamula. This Dashamula succinctly describes both Sadhya and Sadhan with reference to the topics of Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojan. You should understand this first. So it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur who manifested this Dasamula, so to speak. The Dasamula has always been there, but it hasn't been enumerated with the same clarity that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to give us now. Whatever you order, it is my duty to fulfill, said Brajana. You are my Shiksha Guru. I will come tomorrow evening and take instructions from you on Dasamula. Yes, he's not asking for Diksha. He probably already has his family Diksha, of course. But Shiksha is very important. Shiksha can be more important than Diksha. The Shiksha is what is guiding us. Brajanath then offered Dandavat pranams to Babaji Mahashai, who embraced him with great affection. That's very important. He embraced him with great affection. Babaji Mahashai wasn't just thinking, oh, I am the great teacher. Yes, this is a great student. Come to me. No, there was sambandha. There was beautiful relationship between them. Essential. When we seek association, what is that? Svajatya, the same mood. Svajatya snigdha, with affection. And ashraya, always thinking that person is senior. And if that person is senior, he's thinking that everyone else is senior. So that mood of humility is the current. Humility and prem are synonymous, I've said many times. who embraced him with great affection. My son, said Babaji, you have purified the Brahman lineage. It will give me a great pleasure if you come tomorrow morning. So Babaji is saying what pleasure he is getting from the relationship. It's always a pleasure to explain these truths to an enthusiastic Shishya, because it gives an opportunity for the teacher to refresh all these truths. So thank you all very much for your time today. Beautiful chapter. We'll refresh a little bit tomorrow on the chapter 12 before we embark on the Dasmula. And then we'll go into that collection of chapters. Jai Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva-Dharma ki jai, Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha, Kripa Sindhabheva Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha, Hridai Bon Maharaj ki jai, Pujapad Bhakti Sorab Bhakti Sar ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Okay?